All right, how is everybody doing? Good? All right, let's hear it. How are you doing? So, is that because you're excited or you're in the home stretch? So, I have to say the shades are down now, right? But when the shades are up, what a terrible venue for an event, right? I came in last night and the sun was setting. I know you all were out there and having a party. It was such an inspiring place to be. I'm from New York, which is also inspiring, but in a very different way than out here. And it made me think about what I wanted to do with you all today. And I always talk about having two goals. And the first is to make you inspired. We're going to talk about how to create more space for change and innovation in your organizations and in your lives, frankly. Inspiring you about how change happens, what holds you back from it, and ways that you can actually make it go forward. But the other thing that I want to do that's even more important is to make you feel very uncomfortable. Right? Half the room smiled, the other half was like, I got a plane to catch. I want to make you uncomfortable, and here's a very specific reason why. If I make you uncomfortable, I'm challenging the assumptions you have around how things have to be. And that's very important. The reason change doesn't happen, or what blocks us from change often, is the assumptions that we have. And just having someone question them makes you think, is the construct of how I do X, Y, Z really the right way to do it? Is there a different way? Or is this validating the way that I actually see the world? So if I make you feel uncomfortable today, you're doing something right. So I talked about how I want to have more space for change and innovation. And I know that all of you here as leaders know that innovation is important. My question to you isn't, is innovation important? You know that. My question to you is, why aren't you doing a better job of it? Right? Why am I here? If you're so great at innovation, if everyone out there knows that innovation is important, why aren't we just knocking it out of the park? Why do we always hear about the same companies over and over, Google, Apple, BMW? Those are the same companies all the time that we hear about innovating. Why isn't it us? And I'll tell you, I wanted to get to the bottom of this, and this is why I've written my books. Right here, I'm going to talk about Kill the Company today. And I wanted to find out what the barrier was to innovation. So I've got 17 people. We're based in New York, and many of them are around the world, in Singapore and South Africa. They're all over. And we started asking groups like you a very simple question. We would go out and train on innovation and change. And here was the question. What do you spend your day doing? What do you spend your day doing? And what was fascinating to me was not the unique answers that I got. Now think about this. I'll speak to 100,000 people a year, huge groups and small groups. What surprised me was the absolute consistency of the answers. So no matter what country I was in, what organization, what industry, regulated, unregulated, level of person in the company, everyone answered with the exact two things. What do you spend your day doing? Meetings and emails. Everyone's head nodding right now like, oh, that's what I would have said. Right? Meetings and emails. Why? Right? And what that made me realize is how we go about innovation and change is usually in all the wrong ways. The things we put in place, meetings, policies, reports, governing structures, all really important, but they can't be the only thing you do. In fact, they're the thing that puts a chokehold on innovation in the first place and holds us back from what matters, which is meaningful work. So I think what we have to start thinking about is not additive but subtractive. How do we get rid of the things that aren't working to make space for the change and things that need to happen? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start talking about change. And I just want to do a simple raise of hands. How many people here, by show of hands, think that there will be more change in the next 5 years than the previous 5 years? Okay. Some people put up 2 hands, by the way. How many people think there will be less change in the next 5 years than the past 5 years? Okay. That is exactly the same answer I get every single time. In fact, I think the velocity and variety of change is going to be more and more and more in the coming years. So the question is, how do you keep on top of it? Your job is to anticipate and activate change. How do you do it? Well, one of the things that we do when I teach at the University of Houston Clear Lake, which is where they teach futuring, I am a futurist. That is a real job, by the way. Real job. It's a structured study of how change happens, and it's usually not how you think. And it talks to people about possible, probable, and preferable scenarios for the future. Those aren't always linked, by the way. Possible and probable may not be preferable. So how do we teach people to keep on top of change so they can anticipate this, so they can know the possible, preferable scenarios? Well, we play a game with them called In the News. And what we do is we give them headlines of the future. And they have to decide which ones are true and which ones are false. We're going to play that game right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a headline, and I'll read the story to you. And if you think that that headline is true, I want you to stand up out of your chair and give me jazz hands like this. I mean, not like this. I mean, really proud. And if you don't think it's true, I want you to stay seated, fold your arms, and just look extremely angry. Can you do it? Can you do it? Okay, I knew you could. All right, put those chairs back a little bit. Put your coffee cups down and get ready, because here is our first headline. Here it is. So Lloyd's has a small, relatively small innovation group, and this is in the UK, and they are exploring how to value, I think this is cool, personal virtual data. And when you look under the hood, what that means is also figuring out how to ensure your memories. If you think this is true, stand up and give me the jazz hands like this. Ah, a lot of people. Right? Now stay standing, guys, because you look ridiculous and it's fun for me. Now, people standing, this is great because you are my visionaries, right? You are my risk takers. You are wrong, so sit down. You're wrong. All right. No, it's false, but why would you stand for that, right? It's possible, it's probable, and that is actually something that people are starting to study in terms of change. If we can already capture our locomotor activity, our sleep activity, and we're already starting to, through brainwaves, be able to move simple objects, right, with sensors to our brain, it's not that far off to think that what goes into the cloud are our emotions and our memories, and those are very interesting. And they need to be protected, right? How will we do that? So what's interesting for us to think about is, what will be insured in the future? We already know UAVs, right? Unmanned aerial vehicles and other things are already looking at and being insured. But what about when it goes to a whole new level, right? So this is the EHang, which is put out by China. They hope they'll have 160,000 of these in the air within the next several years. They can carry someone of 100 kilograms. They can go 100 kilometers, right? 100 kilometers an hour, about 62. And they are, of course, equipped with 4G, which is interesting too, and cameras. So what does this mean in terms of safety, ensuring the safety of the passenger, as well as protecting the IP that they collect while people are in it? Or the Gita, right? This is our cargo robot that was just put out by Piaggio, who makes Vespa. And they're banking on you needing things to go along with you that you can't carry, mobility systems in all new ways. Gita actually goes about 22 miles an hour. It has sensors so it can follow you on a car or in a bike. And most importantly, it carries a case of wine, everybody. Good to know. Good to know. Or actually what I think more fascinating are robots, or what I want to call personal assistants. That was the big hit at CES this year. Everyone talking about robotics. And in fact, anyone that's going to be in London soon going to the Science Museum, the robots exhibit there is fantastic and a little freaky. This is a robot. This is your assistant. This is someone who looks incredibly lifelike. And has anybody watched Westworld here? This is Westworld writ large. So what do you think about in terms of how you insure a robot or a personal assistant? And how much value does that personal assistant have to you when they're more than just an assistant? They're your friend. They know more about you than anything. They know what you ask about. They hear what you say. They know that what you're sharing with them. They know what you want. And they know that you trust them so much. Where does that go? So here's the question to ask yourself. So in the future, what assets are going to need protection? What is an asset anyway? Is it memories? Is it robots? And what value or risk are we going to place upon these things? Okay. You guys want to do another one? Okay. Let's give those people that stood up another chance. What do you say? I want them to leave here feeling good. Okay, here we go. So Finnish insurance company If, they have enlisted 800 of their customers, fun customers, they all were volunteers, to give video testimonials. Just be available anytime to talk about their services to prospective customers. And it's usually between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m., and they do it via Skype. If you think it's true, stand up, jazz hand it for me. Yeah. See, the reason you're standing is you think I can't do 2 falses in a row. That's what you think. Let's see. You're right, it's absolutely true. Now, to me, this is an interesting way of looking at how do you actually sell your products, but how do actually customers want to hear about it, right? They don't want to hear it from you. They might want to hear it from other people that like you, that have dealt with you, that can tell you the real ins and outs of working with you. This is a screenshot of that, which I like it. Sometimes this is an example of just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm not sure that I would want some of these people in my home, but, right? But what's interesting about this is, this might not be the way that you do it, but it's an interesting way to look at how do we market our products and services? What is the assumption around how we think things has to be? Of course, taking into account regulations, et cetera. But how else could we do it differently? So I want you to think about here in terms of marketing and sales. What are some really unique ways that you could sell your products? How else could you really deliver the information about a policy? Okay, I have one last one, so this is your chance. If you've gotten 2 wrong, this is all I can do for you right now. This is it. So BMW has partnered with the University of Southern California, USC, and they've created a car with over 300 sensors. The goal of this car is not just to promote automobile health and be proactive, but to make the driver healthier. If you think it's true, stand up, jazz hand. And let's be proud about it, really, let's be proud. All right, you think it's true. Wow, we've got some skeptics in the room. 50-50 here, I would say. Big risk for those standing up. I love it. And it is absolutely true. Well done, well done. Okay, so what do we know about this car? This is Nigel. Over 300 sensors in the car, some of you may know about it, but what's interesting was originally put together in terms of automobile health, tire pressure, oil change, time for maintenance, and of course then they can alert you when it's time to improve the health of the car, to be preventative. Well then they said, well why aren't we going to take this to another level and help the driver's health? So when you get into the car, here's the types of things that can happen. The first thing is when you get into the car and you sit down, it will tell you how much weight you've lost or gained since the last time, right? Right? I know. Totally terrible car. Terrible car. Right? Hands on the steering wheel, we can have sensors in terms of our heart rate, and we can know, right, using data, whether our heart rate goes up more when we pull into our driveway at home or our parking spot at work. And we also know, using the air vent system, that when we are going into a polluted area, it will detect that, and the GPS will reroute us to a healthier route. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, right? They even had sensors they tested that could shock you when you need to move around a little bit while you're driving, all kinds of kooky stuff. But this is the moment where people say to me, ha ha ha. And I spend a lot of time working with pharmaceutical organizations. And remember, if at first an idea isn't crazy, there's no hope for it. And I spent a lot of time talking to these organizations. The big thing with pharma, right, is beyond the pill. Is it going to be services? Is it going to be technology? They might not even sell medication in the future. But right now, their bread and butter, right, is their blockbuster drugs. That's what they do. And how they want you to improve your health is through adherence. That's the big term, right? So when they have adherence, they want to know where can they make sure you have the medication in the delivery vehicle that best suits you so you can take it. And so they do a lot of research and they say, you know, where do most people spend their time? Well, in transit, usually to work. Where are they having transit? In their cars. What if we actually injected pharmaceuticals somehow into the car so they could take their medicine while they're driving? That'll never happen until it does. And then your BMW in 5 years is brought to you by Pfizer. So why do you care about this? Why am I telling you all this stuff about change? This is the inspiration part. There are so much cool things happening. And why do you want to get on board? Because the future is not who you are. The future is who you're becoming. And that's a really important difference. All of you here are leaders. Or you wouldn't have been invited here if you weren't really good at what you do, period. And you are obviously able to tell me what you do and your clients what you do, and you're able to do it really well. But are you able to tell me what you're going to be doing in 5 years? The people that are going to be successful in this room will be able to do that. Who are you becoming? And what we want to think about here is, okay, all these things happening, things we could insure, how we could market ourselves differently, all these kinds of industries that are converging. What does this mean for us? Okay, it could mean some simple things that you know. You're going to go from risk handling to proactive, real-time risk management. Right? That's not new. You know about that. Okay, take it even further if we're talking about things like artificial intelligence, big data, and it goes way beyond that, right? The Internet of Things. Then we get into things like stop being what we call reactive and descriptive. This event happened. But more about we want to prevent this event from happening. So we're being anticipative, right? Getting your antenna up and being prescriptive to people. And people are already doing that. right, that are managing high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. We work with them too, as well as people that are just doing service-oriented work or advisory work like you do. So what does this mean? How can we have technology help support you? And how can you change your organization to do that? Is it things like what's happening with UBS, with Citigroup, with DBS in Singapore, where they use artificial intelligence, right? They've already done this, we know this, to help give better portfolio recommendations to their clients and ultimately get better returns so they get more loyalty and they can charge more fees. Okay. Or, for all of you that saw the Super Bowl ad with John Hamm, right? H&R Block. I mean, this is a broad mass type of thing. Using IBM Watson. And what's cool about this is using it to help support the advisors and enhance their ability to serve the client. There is no way that they can possibly keep up on the amount of data. There's no way. 60 years of experience, 600 million data points, and the bigger thing is there's 74,000 pages of tax code. Can you believe that? And every year, 1,200 pages more are adapted or added. How do you keep on top of that? There's many ways to do a tax return. Many ways that are legal. Which one is best for their clients? Using Watson, they'll be able to provide that. So what does it mean for you? In the future, okay, maybe you're not having policies or claims that are waiting to be filed. Clients aren't waiting for an event. You're predicting it and preventing it for them, and therefore, they want to work with you. Okay, so what does this mean? Here's what I want you to think about for your plane ride home. What are you going to be doing in 5 years that you didn't do today? And I want you to be crazy about it. Who would you partner with? What are you going to be doing that's a service that would be completely off the wall? I'm going to have my personal digital assistant insured by you, and I want to know why. Okay, so why is that hard for you to do? Human factors. Here it is. First one is complexity. We are predisposed and preconditioned for complexity. We actually choose it and we don't realize it. We assume that we need to add on to things rather than taking away. More is valuable. And the result of that is what's really hard for those of you that have teams, and that's complacency. Everyone becomes resigned to it. I'm not going to fight it anymore. You know what I'm talking about. And then we get these zombie companies where people are at work, but they're really not at work. Right? We call that presenteeism now. It used to be absenteeism, and now it's presenteeism. Right? They're present, but they're not really there. This is an issue because then people don't want to do anything. They feel like they don't want to fight the battle. They're drowning in complexity. They can't do things simply, so why bother? And so they spend their time doing tactical things rather than doing meaningful work. And I'll tell you, this was really the basics. You know those wake-up moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I've just found the answer. This is a problem. And I had this wake-up moment around what holds people back from innovating and getting to meaningful work when I went down and had a terrible experience in Raleigh-Durham. And I'll tell you this quick story. It was very embarrassing for me, but it was a change moment in my life. And I was asked with my team, I brought down myself and a team of my futurists, to talk about the future of manufacturing 2030, which we know when we talk to a company and they say they want us to talk about the future of their industry, and we say define the future. If they say 2018, we know they have a very different view of the future than 2030, and don't be surprised. Many people say just a couple years out. So this group, one of the largest manufacturers in the world, right, global, in over 100 countries, they wanted us to come down and talk to them. Their top 50 executives in their largest business unit. Let's talk about the future. Great. So we get down there and we start the day in a conference room, right? And we're going to do some really inspiring things. And I kicked it off, and then my team was going to do the rest of the work to come up with scenarios for the future. Really cool things. And I started, and I was about, 15 minutes in. And I realized everybody hated me. Everybody. I mean, it was one of those like the rolling of the eyes, the phone is going, people are, checking their watch, a couple people go to the bathroom, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Right? They asked me to come down. There's really provocative stuff. How can this be? So, I have to say, I did this thing because my whole team is there. I'm so embarrassed. I called the audible and I said, hey, let's take a break. I think we've had enough drinking from the fire hose. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to start in with an exercise. We take a break. I want to just go to the bathroom and be in the fetal position literally for the rest of the day. Not come out, do nothing. But I come out, and of course I run into the senior most person right when I come out of the restroom. And I said, can I talk to you for a second? And he just kind of looked at me surprised. And I said, hey, it just doesn't seem like it's working. People don't seem really engaged. What's going on? And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. He said, no, it's great. Keep doing it. And I said, no one is paying attention. And he said, no, let me read between the lines for you. It's not that we don't want to create change. We love the stuff you're talking about. Frankly, it's that we no longer really believe that we can affect it. Okay, these are the top 50 guys in their largest business unit, and they no longer really believe they can affect it. My God, what the hell's going on in the rest of the company, right? Kind of this resignation, not realizing the signals that they're sending to other people. So I was like, screw it. I got to come up with something totally different now. So I basically said to my team, just go with me. And I rearranged everybody into tables. And it was of like functions and groups, right? So you got rocketry here, golf carts here, engines here. You've got legal here, you got procurement here. You get the idea. So smaller groups of like-minded people. And I said, now listen, you've got about 5 minutes, and I want you to figure out who your number 1 competitor is. The person who keeps you up at night. If you're a function, maybe it's the company you wish you worked for, you could operate like, you get the idea. So everyone debates it, and then everyone tells me who their number 1 competitor is. And it took them a while to figure it out. And I said, now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take another hour, and here's what I did. I said, you're gonna kill your company. You're gonna pretend, put the hat on, you're your number 1 competitor, and I want you to attack your company, and I want you to tell me all the things you're gonna do to put yourself out of business. Your pricing model sucks, your salespeople are weak, the 2 business units that are totally redundant, the compliance stuff that you gotta do, let's do it. I wasn't even finished explaining. It's like lighters are going off, people are excited, songs are, people are dancing. People are so excited because here I've given them this out-of-company experience, right? I've given them permission to get rid of the things that aren't working to make space for those that are. And so we took an hour, and then it became 2 hours. This became all day. In fact, we even teach on it now. We have a thing called Kill the Company. People have us come in because sometimes you need an outside perspective, right? To say, here's what I think your competitors are. Here's where I think your industry's going. You aren't even looking at, let's do the wild stuff, and you can do the safe stuff too. And the reason it's different is because I want you to think about your strategic planning. I frankly think strategic planning is horrible. I think you need to do strategic planning, but you gotta do it in a different way, right? Because here's how strategic planning usually goes. This is what'll happen this year again. You're gonna start it by finding last year's PowerPoint, opening it up, changing the date and saving it. Strategic planning has begun, right? Here it is. And then we're gonna get our SWOT analysis because everyone loves a SWOT analysis. Yeah, there will definitely be goals and objectives. There's going to be lots of financials and appendices, but my favorite is the SWOT because we all have strengths. In fact, we have so many. We just add them every year. Weaknesses, are they weaknesses or are they opportunities, right? And they go and they go and they go. I mean, I literally sit in the back of the room sometimes and go, oh my God. So, this kind of cuts through the political crap, right? And this really says, what isn't working? And it gives people permission to do it because the people that work for you, no matter how great a boss you are, a lot of people operate with risk, fear, power, and control as their everyday mantra. That's what holds them back. So think about this. Could you go back right now, either doing this on your own as an exercise or with your team, and could you kill the company? Kill your unit, kill your whatever the function is? You do it within the purview you have control over. That takes a real leader. So here's what happens within companies. Here's why you're going to say, no, not at mine. We're getting into the human factors of why we're conditioned for this, and then we're going to get over it quickly. The problem is a lot of companies are not leading, they're managing. In fact, they're grooming professional skeptics. That's what we do, right? Everyone can tell me what's wrong with something long before they can tell me what's right. Okay. The second thing is we love process. We love it so much because it's measurable, it's manageable, but then we create the beast that we become a slave to. And we really ignore the thing called culture, and I'll talk about that later, because I think a little bit differently about culture than I think most people do. And then the last thing is this addiction to doing over thinking, and I do mean addiction, right? I literally have judged my life by how I can get through a to-do list. I'm really good at it. But I'm not sure what's on my to-do list should be there in the first place, right? That's the real question. It's not how much you're getting through to-do list, what should be on it in the first place, and what is the meaningful work. I've even created to-do lists after I've done it, just so I can check the box. Has anyone done that? Right? You know you have. You know you have. But what I like about doing over thinking, and this is the best way to think about this, right, is imagine that you actually you're gonna go find Bob, right? And you find him, you gotta ask him a question. There's Bob, and he's sitting in his office, and he's just looking out the window, smiling. You go, hey Bob, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm sorry, I was just thinking. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Get back to work, right? Get back to work. And I love to tell this story because it was another one of those moments that it just crystallized for me. Now, I talk about how I serve on this advisory board at 3M, and it only meets every couple years. And the geeks are my peeps. I love the scientists. They are creating tomorrow today. They are fabulous, and they are really like unsung heroes. They just don't believe they're that innovative, and it kills me. So I'm sitting in a room with all these people that are incredibly patented. You know, their bar for what they accomplish in a day is different than mine. And the night before we'd all gotten together, and we were there to talk about innovation and change and how we can have different intersections to move 3M forward. And I like to talk to the neuroscience guys. I really love brain science, cognitive thinking, et cetera. And I was talking to one of the scientists there, and we're sharing a cocktail, and I said, you know, I really think thinking is a daring act. And this really introverted guy suddenly got very extroverted, you know, got really in my face. And he's like, I completely agree with you. I completely agree that it's a daring act. You know, the brain is the most amazing organ that we have. I said, I know. And he said, no. It starts working from the moment that you wake up in the morning, and it doesn't stop until the very second that you set foot into your office. And I was like, nice. Nice. But we laugh because it's true, right? It's like we get to work, we have the best intentions, and the science tells us that most of us have already plotted out the first 2 hours of our day before we get to work. And all of us, we're smart people, right? And most of us don't get to what we originally started with until 3 hours in, because what gets in the way? The complexity of the everyday mundane, right? How do we stop it? So here's what's interesting. This will make you feel better. What's been happening in terms of complexity? What's getting in the way? In most companies, the amount of, this is in the last 15 years, structures, bodies, decision approvals needed, they were increased between 50 and 350%. The more regulated, the further you are on that spectrum, right? So the struggle is real. But here's what's more interesting for you or the people that work for you. Here is how most people spend their day. This is from a Bain research that was put out last year. 45% of our time is spent in meetings. Some of those are productive. Most are not. 23% are doing email. Now, what was interesting to me is I thought that would be higher. But when you read the data, this is only between 9 and 5, FYI. 18% are doing unproductive work. Unproductive work, that can be going on Facebook. It's also the time people spend walking to their next meeting, which I didn't think should count. And then the last thing is 14% spend their time getting real work done. This is always the slide everyone takes a picture of, by the way. Take it back to your boss. See, I told you so. But what's interesting, what does that mean? That means 6.5 hours a week is spent doing meaningful work. Now, I don't have a single boss that would allow me to stay at my job if I just go, you know what? This week, I think Thursday until 2 is going to be my day. That's when I'm going to do some real stuff. Until then, I'm just going to kind of screw around, okay? No one gets to do that, but that's the reality. We're drowning in that complexity. How do we change it? So here's what I want to do. I want to give you 3 killer tools, and here's all I ask. Try one of them. Try one. They're very simple, and they activate parts of you or parts of your skills that, frankly, are kind of dying. And it gives you permission and permission for your team to do really productive stuff. So I'll give you a couple setups to each one. So here's the first one. And I think to best explain it, we're going to do some math. That'll really get us into this tool a little bit. Who here is good at math, just by show of hands? Okay, like 2 people raise their hand. How about this? How many people here can add 2 numbers together? Great, half the room raise their hands. Okay, it's simple numbers. So let me give you an example. We're going to do this and add numbers together out loud. So if I said 2, you all would yell 2. And then I yelled 2 again, you would add it up and yell 4. Someone said 3, that was very cute. Here we go, I'll start with you, and then I'll fade to the background because I'm pretty sure you'll be able to add numbers. All right, so the first number together out loud, let's say it, 1,000. Let's do it again, together out loud, 1,000. Now let's add it up. 1,000 and? 40. Great, next one. Great. Next one. Oops. Good. Good. Last one. All right, let's do it again. Seriously, it works every time. It's so shocking to me. It's so shocking to me. So, okay, 4,100. What happened? Come on, we're all friends now. We've been together for about 30 minutes. What happened? Right, you trusted him. Good, he trusted me. You did, you trusted me. Right, patterns. Right, this is pattern thinking. This is a really good example of what makes you really great as a leader can make you really bad with innovation and change. You are taught to, in a good way, you're taught to connect the dots quickly, you're taught to find the right answer as fast as you can. Unfortunately, sometimes you miss the gray area that's so important. You don't stop to slow down and question the information that's put in front of you. This is where we get to assumptions. We assumed it was 5,000. So nicely, we all marched together right off the cliff. Okay? Now, what type of person typically gets this right? Smart people? No. You guys are all smart. No. What else? Anyone? People that work with calculators, that's true. No? Okay, it's children, and it's usually up to age 10 or 11. See, people are taught pattern recognition when they're younger, but they haven't had it quite beat out of them yet. And this is typically just before we get into a big battery of testing. And I'm protesting. I'm not protesting. I'm in favor of testing. But I think there's different ways that we need to do it. Right? And so what happens is we start to just live in a world of black and white, right or wrong, multiple choice. And the real things that make a difference are the things that weren't on any of those answers on the test. The other thing that was really interesting about what just happened, just as a little side note, and this is particularly interesting when I talk to people that are in more introverted functions. You know, I always hate to stereotype, but some of those things are really true, particularly when I'm in some of the financial areas, particularly in engineering, with sciences, especially within R&D. We tend to follow the extrovert. And this is particularly true in Western cultures. So what was interesting is some people said 5,000, right? Because the person who says it louder is the smartest. So how do you actually create an area when you're a leader to balance that introverted and extroverted thinking? And it's really important because sometimes that introvert needs the voice because they might have the right answer, right? So what this does is how do we question our assumptions around how things have to be and question the patterns and slow down? So I want to talk to you a little bit about a really cool tool or cool technique around killer questions. Okay, blah, 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 right? Asking better questions. Provocative inquiry. This was even at Davos last year. It was noted to be one of the best skills that we need to teach around the world, and here's why. This is very important for teaching kids critical thinking and creative problem solving right now, and it's driven by technology. In the future, asking the right questions will be more important than finding the right answers. You can get any answer you want right now. Are you asking the right question? I mean, when you think about it this way, Google's not a search engine. Google's an answer engine. Google's an answer engine. 10 years ago, if you searched on Google, when is George Washington's birthday? You would get a list of links that would take you to pages where you could find George Washington's birthday. Now, if you type in the same thing, what do you get? Okay, Wikipedia dissertation, links with a summary right there of what the birthday is, and then everything else that they think you might want to ask next. When you go into a meeting and you've got a problem to solve, what question do you ask? Does it provoke new thinking, or does it numb people to give you the same answers that you already know? Asking a better provocative question that even makes people uncomfortable is really important, and you'll get great answers. So let me give you some ideas. Next time you go into a meeting, spend some time thinking about what is that question. So for example, what if you went into a meeting and you want to drive some new revenue, right? If we had to give away our current products and services for free right now, you have to make it immediate. How else will we make money? question would you love to ask our clients, our customers, or even your own employees, but you are too scared or embarrassed to ask it? That's a good one to think about on the plane. And here's my favorite one. This is a good HR one. You've just written a tell-all book about your company. What secrets does it reveal? Right? Those are those unspoken truths. Okay, so here's what I want you to think about. What killer question would you love to ask? When are you going to ask it? Okay, killer question. No holds barred. Okay, here's the next one. I think this is going to be a favorite. And I'm going to tell a quick story for you. We were working with a nuclear power company, and this was outside of Dusseldorf. And I asked the engineers to tell me about their, basically their climate, right? What's their culture like? And this guy he was funny. He was a professional skeptic, but he said it really well. He said, let me tell you what it's like around here. And he told me this parable you might have heard about. There was a scientist, and he had 10 monkeys in a cage. And one day, he decided to put a banana on top of the cage. Of course, all the monkeys fought for the banana. One of them got it. They let him eat the banana, but then the scientist poured a big pitcher of water on the other 9 monkeys. And they were really mad, screeching mad. Next day, same thing. He puts a banana on top of the cage. One of the monkeys climbs up and gets it. He gets to eat it, and he pours water on all the other monkeys, and they're mad. And by the end of the week, any monkey that tries to climb up and get that banana, everyone pulls him down. No one gets the banana. All right, well, the scientist said, all right, these guys are smart. I'm going to change this up. Every week, I'm going to take an old monkey out, and I'm going to put a new monkey in, and let's see what happens. Next week, old monkey out, new monkey in. What's the first thing that new monkey does? Goes for the banana. All the monkeys pull him down. Next day, same thing. By the end of the week, that monkey knows, my God, don't go for that banana. And at the end of 10 weeks now, they've got 10 new monkeys in the cage. None of them go for the banana. None of them know why. This is what happens all the time. What? Well, there must be a good reason for that law. Well, that rule was put in place by somebody smart. Don't touch that. It's the way we've always done it. Let's not shake it up. So how can you kill a stupid rule? This is a great technique. And if you do it with your team, they will love you for it. Because why? It sets a signal to get rid of the things that aren't working. And that it's okay, it's permission to say, hey, this isn't necessary. I want to make space for meaningful work. So here's how it goes. You get your team in a room and you basically say this. If you could kill or change any 2 rules at work, what would they be and why? Now, of course, there's red rules and green rules, okay? Red rules are the things that are industry mandated, government regulated. You'll go to jail if you kill those rules. Don't touch those rules. Everything else is a green rule. It's fair game. And I'll tell you what happens. I'll give you the example that we had at Merck. There I am with the CEO of Merck. Ken and I, we're standing up. It's his top 300 people. Okay? What 2 rules would you love to kill or change? You pair up the executives. Everyone comes up with 2, even more. Now think about that. You got 300 people in the room. They each come up with 2. Let's say that half of them are redundant. That's 300 new rules that people have come up with in less than an hour. It's much less than that. They can do it in 30 minutes or less even, that you could kill or change. Many of them are quick wins. Many of them, hint, hint, aren't rules. Right? They're annoyances. They're reports. They're meetings. They're things you can get rid of right now to create the space for change to happen. How would you kill a stupid rule? What rules could you kill right now? Your team will love it. And here's the last one I'll leave you with, because this is something that is definitely in the zeitgeist. I want you to kill complexity. And here's what I want you to think about. There was a recent study that was put out, and this was by, actually 3 different groups did it, Bain, SAP, and Deloitte, separately. And the results were the same. There was over 70% incidents, 70% of CEOs answered, what do you consider your number 1 issue going forward this year, your strategic issue? And it was complexity. Is the number 1 strategic issue they were wrestling with. Over 70% of CEOs answered this. The corollary to that is the number 1 strategic advantage of our time is simplicity. And written into many of the strategic platforms, at Altria, GE, P&G, Merck, are all addressing simplicity as their number 1 strategic advantage. Syngenta has a chief simplicity officer. Google has cut the crap committees. GE has simplicity teams. right? They know that this is an issue. How do you make simplicity your operating system? And the reason why I was talking about culture earlier, that I think this is so important, is because simplicity is not a financial issue. It is that, but it's also a cultural and ethical issue, right? People think of culture, this is what they think of. Do we have a culture for simplicity? Do we have a culture for innovation? Most people think that if you have whiteboards and you have colorful paint and you have foosball tables and organic food, that you have a culture, right? Chairs shaped like hands, that's not a culture. If that was true, Google would have a 0 attrition rate, 0. Culture is the work that you do every day. That's it. And if you get the work right, you get the culture right, period. How do you create space for meaningful work? You kill complexity. So let me give you some tips to get rid of that meeting, that email, the thing that can make you start making it a habit. And these are fun ones from our clients. Now, let me just give you a little backup. This is actually kind of fun. Why do you care in the first place? Many people will say, well, you know, simplicity is easy to say, but it's hard to do. That's what these guys are banking on. Some of these are unicorns, some of these are public, by the way. But the idea here is, it's not about size anymore, right? People don't care that you're big, that you got distribution channels, that you got IP. They can get access to capital, they can get technology. The barriers have come down. Speed is greater than size. And what speed gives you is simplicity, and it gives you disruption. And if you operate with simplicity, you can do those things, and you can change an industry out of nowhere. And that's good for you if you're the disruptor, and it's bad for you if you're not. These guys are winners because they operate with simplicity. Right? Dropbox makes it simple for you to get access to files. Uber makes it simple, maybe not ethical, but it makes it simple for you to get a car. Airbnb, simple to get a hotel room. Kickstarter makes it simple for you to get funding. Match.com makes it simple for you to date people you never should have met, right? All kinds of things. Simple. How are you going to have simplicity as your operating system? So let me tell you some fun things that I've learned from my research. If you have too much day-to-day stuff, do what Google did, establish a cut the crap committee. People that are in charge of looking at stuff like a voyeur and saying, you know what, cut that crap, you don't need it anymore. You keep holding on to it because of risk and fear and power control, you can get rid of this stuff. Or killing stupid meetings like Sprint did. Right? The CEO, Dan Hess, when he was there, he said, I want you to kill 50% of your meetings. People aren't going to kill 50% of the meetings, but you need to be bold, right? They got all their managers in the room, they audited every meeting they have, weekly, monthly, ad hoc, etc. Excuse me, the average group ended up killing 17% of their meetings. Do you know how much time that is? That's incredible. No scroll emails is a favorite of mine. This is one actually that HBO does. If you have to scroll to read the email, in fact, most of them just use the subject line for their email. That's what I do. If you get an email from me, you only get it in the subject line. If you have to do more than that or you have to scroll, it should be a meeting or it should be attached, right? Your habits tell me how much you respect my time. Another one from Merck is really great. It's called NNTR, no need to respond. You know those annoying FYI emails that you get and everyone responds, thanks, got it, oh my God, those are terrible. They got so many of those at Merck. This actually cut down their email traffic in a few departments by more than 30, I think he said 34%. Because they knew that when you typed in either the subject line or in the first part of the body of the email, NNTR, no need to respond, you can just read this. You're the jerk if you respond, right? So it cuts down and it changes behavior. The other one I really like is changing the frequency. Now you don't think about this. These are the things that we just do as humans. You establish a weekly meeting and it stays weekly, no matter where you are in that project. Sometimes you need to revisit those things. Maybe you don't need that report as many times. Maybe you don't need that meeting so much. Maybe that governance structure can go away now because the project has moved on. And HBO was funny, I'll tell you this last story. HBO, there was a group in their distribution network group, and they're a really fun group. I mean, remember, they produce Game of Thrones. Anything goes in this group, right? And he said, we have so many damn meetings, I can't even stand it anymore. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to change one of my meetings, and I'm going to change it from weekly to monthly. So I'm just going to try it. I'm going to pilot it. If people complain, we'll change it back. He does it. No one notices. Well, then he starts to get bold. Then he decides he's going to make the location, this is kind of funny, to every meeting a secret. And I said, well, that sounds like you're making it complex. He said, no one reads my agendas. And I send the agenda out the night before. Now if they don't read it and they don't show up, I know why, because they didn't know where the location was, right? I thought that was pretty good. Change the frequency. So these are some tips. And I just want to leave you with this, and this is the thought. It's that change is a choice. Change is a choice. You don't have to do it. How you respond to it is really what matters. And I'll leave you with this one last story that I've always loved. And this is from the same guy that was in Germany. And he said, there was this mom, and her daughter came home, and she was just so down on life. And she just felt like things were going against her all the time. And her mom was trying to coach her in terms of her experience and say, you know what, it's just how you handle it. And she's like, Mom, just stop saying that, that's so annoying. And she put 3 cups in front of her, and she put boiled water in each of them. And the mom said, sit down, and I'm going to talk to you about something. In the first cup, she put carrots. In the second, she put an egg. In the third, she put coffee. And she said, you're going to think this is corny, but I just want to show you something. And they sat there for a minute, and they let each of those things sit in the 3 cups. And then she turned to her daughter, and she pointed to the first cup with carrots and said, what do you see? And of course, she's a little annoyed. She's like, I see carrots. She goes, no, what happened to the carrots? And she said, they're boiled, they're soft. She said, right. When the carrots were met with adversity in the water, they gave in. What do you see in the second cup? She goes, I see an egg. She goes, right, a hard-boiled egg. When the egg met adversity in the water, it hardened and it stiffened to the change. It tried to resist. She said, what do you see in the third one? And she said, I see coffee. And she said, right. When the coffee met adversity, the coffee changed the water. So what do you think about when you are all of a sudden inflicted with change that's coming at you? Do you resist it? Do you give into it? Or do you be the one that anticipates it and changes it for others? I hope that you'll kill your company. I hope that you'll do provocative killer questions. I hope you'll kill stupid rules. And frankly, I hope that you'll make simplicity a habit. If you do any of these things, I'm going to share this with you here, email me. Let me know how it goes. And if it doesn't work, let me know. I've got a million more that I can tell you because I really want to make change work for you. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you very much. Thank you.